So after challenging the status quo in the smartphone industry, Asus has launched a couple of new smartphones. If you have guessed it, yes, I'm talking about the Asus Zenfone 3 series, one which I reviewed earlier thanks to Asus, and the current one which is the new Zenfone 3 Max. The Max tag has been one of their best bets of bringing a device which has all-day battery life, which we have seen with the devices in the past. So continuing that path, recently they launched the Asus Zenfone 3 Max in two different variants. The one which I have is the ZC553KL variant, which is the highest end model. So is it better than its predecessor rather than comparing it with the competition, resembling the fact that it claims the all-day battery life tag? Let's find that out today. So I'm Prateek and you're watching my Zenfone 3 Max review on the Next Thinkers channel. If you have read my Zenfone 3 review, you already know how premium the device feels. But again, the glossy back kills that appeal. Thankfully, Asus hasn't implemented a glass back here on the new Zenfone 3 Max. The company has gone ahead with the conventional aluminium unibody design. Speaking of which, the 2.5D curved glass on the front along with the aluminium metal body throughout the surface feels like a solid combo. The device has subtle curves along the edges, though you would find somewhat sharp edges on the front panel which connects the metal body via plastic outline. The Zenfone 3 Max gives a premium appeal in hand, and anyone would love this device if his or her usage period is on an extended period of time. On the back there are antenna line cutouts, whereas the top and bottom part of the back panel has been made of plastic. Rest is made of aluminium metal. The plastic part has been kept for signal reception while it has been colored appropriately to match the metal tone. While remember the fingerprint magnet appeal on the Zenfone 3 which I complained about? Thankfully this design eliminates that. Due to that, there are hardly any smudges left on the back of the Zenfone 3 Max. The lock and volume keys are perfectly clicky and tactile, whereas there is a little weight to this device and you can feel it when held. So better buy a case for protection from any accidental drops. Though if you compare the fingerprint scanner from the Zenfone 3 and Zenfone 3 Max, the scanner here is in square format. It might not be as fast as Zenfone 3, but at least this time they've got the placement right. Also comparing to the Zenfone 3 design, there is no camera sensor bump here, due to which it lays flat on the surface. So in the design department, this has to be one of the best designed smartphones by Asus. I mean it. Fun fact, many people asked me whether I had an iPhone or a Pixel when I pulled it out in public. I guess as the design seems appropriately same, it can trick a few. Though I wish that the speaker grills were situated at the back, as during gaming sessions or watching a video in landscape mode, the speakers get easily covered, which results in a muffled audio. It would have been better if they would have provided speaker grills on both the sides of the micro USB port. Also, speaking of which, the audio output is quite tiny from the inbuilt speaker, though Asus has provided an outdoor mode within the software. Essentially that just doubles the output. But I wouldn't recommend anyone doing this as the output gets distorted on a very great level. Whereas speaking about the design department, it's available in the titanium grey, glacier silver and sand gold colors. The Zenfone 3 Max has a 5.5-inch Full HD IPS LCD panel having a 72.3% screen to body ratio, which gives it a pixel density of 401 ppi. When it comes to the real world usage, the display is real as it gets. It's sharp, vivid, slightly toned down, but that's acceptable as long as saturation gets observed. In the bright sunlight, it can be a hit or miss when you have selected the auto brightness mode, as it is sometimes slow to respond. But as always, you can tune it up. Viewing angles are great, and especially that subtle 2.5D curved glass helps in merging that look. Whereas when it comes to the protection, Asus has thrown a Gorilla Glass panel on the top, while it also comes with an oleophobic coating which helps in reducing the scratches on the front. Also below that gorgeous display is the capacitive navigation keys, which as always are not backlit. I don't know why Asus does this, though if you have any hard time at night, just turn on the one-handed mode which toggles on the on-screen buttons. So the new Zenfone 3 Max comprises of the Snapdragon 430 octa-core chipset clocked at 1.4 GHz, coupled with 3 GB of RAM and Adreno 505 GPU. If we talk about the general day-to-day tasks, it performs like a charm. Now don't get the 3 GB RAM trick you with the fact that its performance would be a breeze, because it isn't. The moment you start loading apps in the background, or the longer any game is kept in memory when minimized, the device starts to lag a bit. By the way, this doesn't mean in any way that it stutters or force closes any apps at all. The Zen UI has improved a lot over the past couple of years. Now it feels more snappy and you won't find any issues if you're having a walkthrough over the interface. If you are a heavy gamer, then you might be disappointed as the Zenfone 3 Max suffers from frame drops when you play graphic intensive games. though I feel that the processor is working pretty hardcore and handles most things like a charm, but games is certainly not a part of it. That is why when you play games for more than odd 30 minutes, you can find the device heating up considerably, and this might piss you up. Its gaming review is already up on the channel, so if you're interested, definitely check it out. Speaking of the numbers, the Asus Zenfone 3 Max has a 16 megapixel Pixel Master 3.0 rear camera with f2.0 aperture, face detection autofocus, laser autofocus 2.0 with tri-tech mechanism on board. And lastly, the dual LED flash. If you switch the sights onto the front, it has a 8 megapixel camera with f2.2 aperture. The rear camera can shoot 1080p Full HD videos at 30 frames per second. So does the front camera, but at 10 FPS at maximum, which is disappointing. Since we are through with the numbers, now let's talk about its real world performance. The rear camera does a decent amount of job in producing sharp images which are noise free but in broad daylight. Sometimes it overexposes the subject, but that can be easily fixed by the manual mode. Focusing and snapping speeds were impressive, again in broad daylight. The shots produced by the rear camera are good enough to suit your social media needs, though when the light dims, there is an entirely different story to it. Noise gets observed and photos are at times underexposed. But that can be somewhat balanced by the inbuilt flash, though get ready for some oversaturated shots. Since most of these are just software issues, Asus may provide an update to patch these minor flaws. Though most of the time the rear camera manages to take a decent shot if you have got the patience to do so. Yes, I'm talking about the manual mode on this phone. I've shot an entire video about the OnePlus 3T unboxing from this phone itself, so do check that video to get a glimpse of the Zenfone 3 Max's camera. Though if you switch onto the front 8 megapixel unit, it's not a great camera but rather satisfiable. Does the job of taking selfies, and there's nothing more than this to talk about. Here are a few photos clicked with it. Despite all that, the camera will be a good companion to your day-to-day activity, but don't have high thoughts. In the software side, the Asus Zenfone 3 Max runs on the Asus Zen UI 3.0 built on top of Android 6.0.1. While over the past couple of years, Asus has refined their UI a lot and now it feels fast and snappy, though the ever popular bold and big icons are always there. The launcher has been updated with performance tweaks, and due to the themes integration, you can now apply virtually thousands of themes from their proprietary theme store. Then there's Mobile Manager app and the Game Genie, two new features which have a lot of interesting things going on system-wide. Whereas as always you will find bloatware, but that's rather on the weak side with the Zen UI 3.0 update. On the contrary, Zen UI reserves about 8GB internal storage for these things, which to be honest isn't good. I mean, sure, some of these apps come in handy sometimes, but it would have been great if there was an option provided to uninstall them, as you're only left with 23 or 24 gigabytes of internal storage, which is really bad. Though additionally, Asus provides 2 years of 100GB storage on Google Drive and 5GB on their web storage ecosystem, and expansion is available via memory card slot up to 256GB. The mobile manager is always running 24/7 in the background, and it keeps your system running smooth by keeping ample amount of RAM properly distributed. But the fact that it's always on the notification bar bugs me a lot. Same goes for the Game Genie app. As soon as you open any game, the floating toolbar opens up. However, if you love to keep your scores organized, then Game Genie is the way to go. Apart from that, several other apps such as Audio Wizard and functions such as Zen Motion and Gestures can come in handy in a long run, since it is a big device. Talking about its battery life, essentially it is the USP of this device. The inbuilt 4100 mAh battery is capable of providing a better battery backup, running up to a full day when you are moderate with usage. Though if you are a heavy user, it can last you up to 8 hours, which varies from user to user. I got about 6 hours of screen on time with the new Zenfone 3 Max, which included gameplay, extensive SoundCloud usage, YouTube and writing notes. While during that, it was connected to Wi-Fi and 4G LTE, and I was still left with 15% of battery. Sure, there is a decrease in the number regarding the capacity from the previous generation, which is 5000 mAh, but I won't bother that if I'm getting an overall better designed smartphone. Whereas speaking on the reception part, it supports 2G, 3G, 4G on all networks but lacks VoLTE. That can stand as a major issue due to the Reliance Jio's current market dominance in India. That being said, the handset is VoLTE supported, and the company has confirmed with me that the VoLTE update will be available in early 2017. While my calling experience on this device was average and sometimes worst, I had network issues on this device, and most of the times the calls were dropped automatically. though this issue was fixed in the recent update which I received on 19 December 2016. But I can't wait to see VoLTE running on this device because it is a necessity. I hope Asus fixes this as soon as possible. So what is my final verdict on the new Asus Zenfone 3 Max? Well, if you consider the Zenfone 3 Max tag until now, this is certainly a welcome upgrade from the previous generation. The Zenfone 3 Max ZC553KL variant is a great device when it comes to battery life, design appeal and overall ergonomics. But that doesn't mean that it is a great performer when it comes to the slightly underpowered Snapdragon 430 chipset. If it had any of the 6 series processor from Qualcomm, then I wouldn't mind paying the price for which it is currently sold at. Speaking of which, recently Lenovo launched their new P2 smartphone which comes with a humongous 5000 mAh battery and that too at a slightly less price, which immediately creates a diversion in my mind regarding the Zenfone 3 Max's USP. I might have second thoughts in recommending Zenfone 3 Max compared to it, but again, the Zenfone 3 Max is a great device, however, not for the price. So that's about it when it comes to the Zenfone 3 Max. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to share it among with your friends and hit the like and subscribe button so that we will meet in the next video.